go like liberal media, because it's not all liberal media, but I've seen like a lot of accounts and a lot of these so-called like journalists and experts like specifically trying to like paint flagrant in one way, right?
As conservative.
And I go, if you actually like watch Flagrant and you know Flagrant, it might be the only pod, well, and Brilliant, with actual diversity.
In this video, we join Andrew Schulz and Charlemagne on their podcast, Brilliant Idiots. Andrew Schulz responds to liberal political commentators who attempted to spin a negative narrative over a clip of him explaining why he voted for Donald Trump. With that, let's watch Andrew Schulz destroy left-wing and progressive commentators over their dishonesty.
He asked me a question. He said, why is the media system broken? He was basically talking about there's a broken media ecosystem. And, you know, he was talking about, you know, how clips and all this different stuff. And I said to him, I was like, yo, the media ecosystem is not broken.
Okay.
The way we consume content is.
Talk to us.
Because we'll watch this.
And let it define
a person's whole narrative. Let's use podcast, for example.
Oh, dude.
I actually used your example. I actually used Flagrant as an example to the students. I was talking about the Pete Buttigieg interview. Mm-hmm. You can watch 2 minutes of that interview, and everybody, I saw people just mad, like, oh, what the fuck, why did Pete go on this show, blah, 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 this and that. I'm like, number one, did you watch the clip?
No.
And if you did watch the clip, did you go take the time as a consumer to literally go watch the full podcast?
Definitely not.
You have to nowadays. Mm-hmm. So the media ecosystem isn't broke. The media ecosystem is doing what it's doing. It's up to us to go do our due diligence and take in the full context of things.
Okay, I think you're 100% right, because you're treating people with the most agency. You're an adult and you should be able to consume things as an adult. Yes. And you shouldn't just be spoon-fed things that satisfy your lust and desire and hatred or support, whatever it is. Unfortunately, I think one thing you could say about media, and it's not just politics, by the way, it's medicine too, but like, it's very easy. I think most people, they have a certain feeling about the world and they're going out there looking to satisfy it. And here's the dangerous thing. It's not just the consumers. It's the people in media also, because they get views and clicks on satisfying their own viewpoint, which is often their audience viewpoint. So like Flagrant's a perfect example, right? Because I've seen like...
Yeah, I agree. I don't think media is broken in the sense that they're talking about. Obviously, legacy media is broken for their ridiculous bias, but that also goes to something that we're talking about. At some point in time, in its infancy, news was probably just that, telling the news. But then as ratings get involved, and high salaries and big cable news networks, it's all about getting eyes on the televisions. So over time, these news outlets, without question, gravitated towards stories that they thought their audience would like. And there are other influences too, I'm sure, that brought legacy media to the state that it's in today. I think the state of academia has really contributed as well, because in academia, who they often have on these shows to be commentators, it's just a giant left-wing propaganda machine too. But anyway, content creators are no different than that legacy media. Once you find a lane that your viewers enjoy watching, I don't care if you're a small YouTuber or Mr. Beast, you're going to continue to churn out content that will get eyes on the screen. I think Sam Harris described it, who I don't like at all, but he described it as audience capture. So the audience is looking to be satisfied in their worldview, Andrew's right, and each legacy news channel and YouTube channels, whether they admit it or not, are attempting to be that satisfaction for the viewer. So if I put out a video and it gets 500 views and I put out another video, it gets 200,000, I'm going to start willing my content down to be more similar to the second video, you know? And again, many political commentators will tell you, oh, I'm not like that. First of all, I think they're lying to themselves, but even if they really believe they're not, consciously or subconsciously, they are. That's their livelihood, you know? Anyway, let's get back to the video.
I don't want to go like liberal media, because it's not all liberal media, but I've seen like a lot of accounts and a lot of these so-called like journalists and experts like specifically trying to like paint Flagrant in one way, right?
As conservative.
And I go, if you actually like watch Flagrant and you know Flagrant, it might be the only pod, well, and Brilliant, with actual diversity. I'm not talking about the way we look. Yeah, we're diverse. of course, naturally, you got a black dude, you have an Indian dude, you got a white dude, another white dude, right? But in terms of like intellectual diversity, like even diversity within Florida. Miles is this like liberal communist from Florida, he's producer. But Mark grows up more conservative, religious. Akash grows up in conservative Texas, but he also has like liberal leanings because he was a brown dude growing up in Texas after 9/11, right? Me, I grew up liberal in New York. Alex grows up in this beach community out there in Far Rockaway, right? Like more like a surfer guy.
And lies about the hood.
And lies about the hood, paints his nails, etc. Right? Obviously, he's boogie boarding all day. So the point that I'm trying to make,
in the back.
Yeah, of course, he's in the back of his wetsuit for sure. It's only wet on land.
Absolutely.
But like, you actually get different viewpoints. We're like this manosphere bro pod. Two of the guys on the podcast have only had sex with one girl, the person that they married.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like they clearly, and I don't even know if they're aware of it. And that's the sad thing, because some of these people consider some journalists, they're not even doing the due diligence to look into what the show is, which is like, in my estimation, that and Brilliant Idiots are like the last bastions of true diversity in podcasting. And then we get labeled in this certain way, and they take clips out of context and don't even apply any of their liberal progressive values to them.
And
they'll just go, oh, this is meat, and I can feed it to my audience, and I'll place them in this certain way. Like,
if you like watching videos like this one, like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video.
And that's why I said it's up to the consumers. Like we keep talking, it's the consumer has to go do their due diligence. I listen, that's probably why we might come off as contrarians. Because if I see a clip of something, the first thing I'm going to do is I got to see what this is attached to.
100%.
And then I'm going to spend my day or whatever couple of hours watching this whole thing.
100%.
And then I'm like, oh, I understand the perspective now.
Bro,
I understand where this person was coming from.
There was this,
I get what they were trying to say.
I went on Trigonometry pod. You know those guys.
Yeah,
I went on and a clip, they got a clip from that pod, right? And I'm being so reductive because I'm a fucking comedian and I'm talking to other comedians, right? And I'm trying to talk about the context of the whole clip is how the priorities or the perceived priorities of political parties have kind of changed. And how when I was growing up and Democrats are the coolest thing on the fucking planet, we're like open and accepting, and we saw value in all these different communities. We're like, yeah, gays should get married. Gays are fucking awesome, and black people should have rights. And the conservatives weren't there during the civil rights movement.
It's funny, just as I said a couple minutes ago, that all commentators are victims of audience capture and kind of pandering to their audience. Flagrant started out as pretty much comedy podcast, and I think it's evolved into news, commentary, political, social, kind of crosses over into everything. As a comedy podcast, or whatever the subject of your podcast is, you're still going to know what content is more likely to work for your audiences, and you're going to produce that content. But I will say, since I started out as a comedy podcast, it's so funny to get painted as right-wing because they're just not. They really are welcoming to everyone. Andrew is conservative, but is really willing to listen to both sides, but it's called like a right-wing podcast. I think like any podcast with any ounce of masculinity in it, the left labels as right-wing. You know, these ridiculous progressive and left-wing commentators could actually have good relationships with some of these podcasts like Flagrant or Rogan or whatever, but they just knock them all the time because if they disagree with their ridiculous worldviews at all, they call them right-wing. And I acknowledge all the time, I've got my bias and I paint people in certain lights, but the right is not remotely as quick to watch a news show on YouTube and say that's a left-wing show, unless they're just spouting leftist propaganda. I think the right's threshold for labeling something the opposition is much higher than the left. If you say one thing the left doesn't like, you're a right winger. Anyway, let's wrap it up.
And Democrats really were, and that was awesome, right? Like the president, Bill Clinton, was cool. Like he was making an effort to like show that he understood other people. Not only is he going on a fucking Arsenio Hall, but there's a little part of us like, all right, this guy's getting his fucking dick sucked. And I'm so reductive, and I just make it about, and then I go, and now look at conservatives. They're the ones saying you should be able to say free speech, whatever the fuck you want. And what's his face got three baby mamas. And it's like, yeah, of course, I'm going to vote for the dude who's getting some pussy. I'm being so reductive on purpose. And the clip that they shows no context to the conversation. It's just me going like, I'm gonna vote for the guy that got 3 baby mamas. He got some pussy. And then it perfectly matches the manosphere perspective that they've created right? And they don't allow any of the context in which they could learn from. You could learn about how people perceive your party through criticism, but unfortunately, they don't want to take any of that criticism, and without that, they won't learn.
Very, very well said there at the end. I mean, look how the Democrats keep doubling and tripling down on the same things that lost them the election. It's very clear they will never look at things from someone else's perspective, and they will never learn. But we want to hear from you. What did you think about this conversation about media pandering to their audience and viewers looking to satisfy their worldview? Let us know in the comments. Anyway, as always, really appreciate you watching, and we will see you on the next one.